you do the attendance. It just helps us get funding and stuff like that. So, yeah, let's see. For those of you who don't know us, we're Project Boundary, so we're a penetration testing group in the Mad Labs. And yeah, we're just going to start by introducing ourselves here. And we have the emoji, so that's the fence part, which is kind of funny. But
My name's Aaron, also known as Eric. Misspoke my name. Anyways, so I have a bachelor's in cyber operations from DSU. Got that a while ago. I was a speaker at Black Hat 30 for a tool that I wrote called Subparse, which is for large-scale automated analysis of malware. Been to different conferences for speaking and presentations and keynotes. Before I came down here to finish out school, I had 12 years of software development experience in professional sector, mainly doing contracts. CCDC Linux lead, lots of malware research. Wrote my first botnet, peer-to-peer botnet in 6th grade. Spent way too much on a home lab. Plan on probably spending even more. And an avid nano hater. So.
All right. My name is Landon. My history is not nearly as impressive as Aaron's. I have a bunch of unfinished projects, like a home lab that is completely unfinished, not plugged in. Avid nano enjoyer, except for I will say I dug a little bit into neo. Cool. Other than that, like cars, computers, hacking, obviously, photography, just random, whole bunch of random stuff. Oh yeah, I'm going for my bachelor's in cyber operations in the 4+1 program for the computer science master's degree, the cyber operations track, which is a lot of fun. You guys get to take Andrew Kramer's software exploitation class. Great class, so fun. What else do I have? Yeah, started on the project as an intern, still an intern last May, and then yeah, I guess the next guy is pretty obsessed with doors, so we'll talk about that too.
Oh yeah, Paul.
Oh, Paul. Yes, that's Paul. That was his idea. That was his name. He named them. It just ended up on my desk. I was gone doing other things over the summer, and I came back, and Paul was on my desk, so it stayed there ever since. The little USB jack was me messing up an Ethernet cable, and so I just cut it and took it back, and then yeah.
My name is Hunter. You guys have probably seen me around because I'm also the lead of the CTF and ethical hacking clubs. I'm a master's student going for cyber defense. Last year, I graduated with my bachelor's in cyber operations. I was also under PBF. Well, actually, so I started under a different group in the lab over the summer. So in May 2023, me and Landon started at the same time. It was over a different pen testing group called Heartland Project. So that's only open over the summer, and basically it's identical to what we do, except instead of hitting like local government type of stuff, it's like critical infrastructure, so like water and energy and stuff like that. I really like Active Directory. I also really like Doors. Later, that'll kind of make more sense. And yeah, so like some current or past and current competitions. So 2023, I was on the AI Red team at DEF CON 31. That was a team that DSU had. Last summer, I was on the DARPA Artificial Intelligence Cyber Challenge, which was also at DEF CON. That was a big thing. And then this weekend, I'm going to be over at the Cyber Summit, so I'm probably going to see some of you guys there. And then next Saturday or next whatever, basically next weekend, I'm going to be over in CPTC with the other competitors for DSU. I also have a home lab. Talk to me about home lab stuff. I'm obsessed with it. I really like all of that stuff. And then this is the little guy on my desk. So we had a tech deck, and then I pulled this 3D printed like Dwayne Droxon, like Among Us, like Rock Among Us character. I actually pulled him out of like the wall in the lab. It was either the wall or the smart fridge. It was one of the two. Yeah, I think it was the smart fridge. But yeah, something with like I saw it in there one time, and I was like, nah, it's mine now. So he's been sitting on my desk for about the past year or so.
All right, so what do we do? So we perform free cybersecurity assessment well, pen tests mainly, for cities, counties, and municipalities through South Dakota. As Hunter was talking about the other project that he started over, I also oversee the lead pen test side for Heartland, where that is for outside of South Dakota. So basically with this, we'll do internal, external, and physical assessments. They're in a 3-week turnaround period. So depending on how many clients we have at a time, it can be very hectic. With the external side, we'll be hacking on the IPs, the websites, doing social engineering, trying to get access in some way. Physical side, we actually will show up and try and social engineer and get into computers or networking closets. There was one time that I walked into a facility and I looked like I was lost-ish, kind of, right? Like I will take forever to find a bathroom, but I will go sit in your server room for like 45 minutes. I've had that happen quite a few times on different assessments. For the internal side, we actually will send an Intel NUC that will just be connected to the client's network. We use some different infrastructure now that we'll talk about later to remote in and start hacking from there. In the last year, we've done about 180 assessments. So usually we'll have anywhere between 4-8-ish assessments at any given time. We're located over in the Mad Labs, so we're very close with South Dakota Consumer Protection as well as CISA. So we try and take all the clients and pipe them right into CISA so that they can get some extra free help. And then, yeah, we're funded by the South Dakota State's Attorney General's office.
Yeah, so aside from like the pen testing stuff, we also do a lot of like really interesting projects. So if you want to talk about the Rainbow Table.
Oh yeah. So over the past like 2 weeks, that little bottom, that picture, the hash search thing is just a fancy little database API kind of tool that I've been working on. You take where we go and we'll start cracking a whole bunch of passwords, and all of a sudden we have these hashes and password combinations. And for ever since I started, we basically just been re-cracking everything. And so now we're getting to a point where we don't want to spend the time waiting for things to be cracked all the time. So we're making a tool that will basically connect to a database that has a whole bunch of pre-cracked hashes. And so that we can basically just be like, this is the hash that we got, send it out there, and it'll come back. As you can see, that one is for password one bang, or for NTLMs, MD5s, SHA-1s. There's also some more stuff in there because this is the screenshot from like 2 days ago, which is already outdated because there's more stuff to this now. That's basically what I've been working on for the past couple days, but yeah.
Yeah, you can do this too.
All right, so some of the automation, the infrastructure. So my background in software engineering was in big data with large-scale automation, as well as mobile application development. Most of it was kind of with big data in some of the oil fields. But with the automation, we have made it so that we can like auto tear down and set up all of our infrastructure from scratch in a couple of minutes, compared to having to take weeks to 100% set up. As far as like our infrastructure is concerned, I guess do you guys know what like zero trust networks are? Some of you guys do, yeah. So everybody knows what Cloudflare is, right? Yeah. So we actually were using that, but we moved away from it. The biggest thing that we have to be concerned about with our clients is, protecting whatever data that we get. We've had everything from social security cards, IDs, birth certificates, sometimes all three for the same people. I've exfilled, 2,000 some odd social security numbers off of a single desktop. So like, does anybody know what the single point of failure could be as far as data security with like Cloudflare? Right? So like if you have a zero trust network, your device has to connect out to a correlation server. So you can't guarantee with 100% certainty that like that remote correlation server is not going to like take that data because they have the keys for the encryption. So we actually moved away from Cloudflare. We're now using NetBird. We've seen a massive increase in speed. We have a bunch of different stuff. I actually just got done with building out OpenR port. It's a RMM system for remote desktops if you ever need it, as well as patch management. Yeah.
Brian mentioned that most of this is also just Dockerized, like he was saying, so that it's super easy to tear down and back up.
Does anybody mess with Docker? Has anybody wrote their own like full-blown containers, like Docker files from complete scratch? Okay. Anybody hear of Dagger or Kubernetes? Okay, so like inside of cybersecurity, one of the biggest things that you guys need to kind of learn is going to be things like containerization. So if you guys can start messing around with Docker, there's other tools like Dagger that's out there as well. Kubernetes, Docker Swarm, different things like that. It can help you guys learn because you can hack against it in a local system, and then also help you when you get out into the real world, where most things are going to be some form of Docker or containerization, whether it be Docker or LXC or whatnot. So if you guys can learn that, it'll help you out in many situations. One of the other things that we have is I have a custom SAM exfil script. It also does some LSAS stuff as well. Essentially, anybody mess with flippers? Yeah. So they're great. So this is my little flipper, 3D printer case for it. So we can walk up to a system, and in about 10 seconds, I can exfil all of the SAMs, quite a few other hives, as well as LSAS, have it completely ported out from your network to ours. And that will get us, hashes, plaintext creds, or at least access onto that desktop when we get in. I need 10 seconds. So I know that here we are a cyber school, but still, like, even in the lab, I'll see people like leaving their desktops unlocked. It's not a good idea. I mean, in the lab and like around here, it is what it is, but like make sure to lock your stuff.
And for those who don't know, the SAM is basically part of the registry on a Windows computer. So if you can dump the SAM, you can pull out various like password hashes and stuff like that. A lot of times, so if we can get those to our systems off of the physical assessment, then we can immediately start cracking it, or we can pull what's called a pass the hash attack, depending on what type it is. And then that's how we can get initial access into different computers. But yeah. We've also done like phishing templates. So for phishing campaigns, we've built out like different email templates, the different like landing pages that if somebody clicks on one of our malicious links, what will that actually look like? So this was another one that we did over the summer. So that image up on the top, I designed some fake IDs. So me and Aaron were the ones on PBF. Landon was doing a project over the summer somewhere else. And then Rain and Noah were on Heartland projects. So we would kind of like when Heartland would do an assessment, we would all kind of share it. So I threw that together in a couple of hours, and we took it to a couple on site. Pretty fun. We also have like distributed password cracking. So we have multiple systems. One of them is in the lab. One of them is in like the data center in the Mad Labs. So we can kind of like distribute the workload across multiple systems. And actually, just today, we finished our lab-specific large language model. So basically ChatGPT, but it's self-hosted. It's a really common thing to do with home labs and stuff. But it was really fun to play around with this one because the current system, actually the system that we had this on, has 6 Tesla T4s. So basically, with all 6 of those, we have about 96 gigabytes of VRAM. So we could really throw some stuff at this, and it was really fun watching all of the numbers start going up the second you started loading it. So, but yeah, that's just like a couple of the fun little things that we've done outside of actual work. So.
This is my least favorite part too, you guys. So ethics. So what we do is kind of a gray area, right? Like, like you can hack on stuff, and depending on what you're trying to do, it can be taken 2 ways. But the biggest thing you always have to be concerned about is litigation, CFAA in the States. So before you ever do a pen test or, try and hack on somebody's stuff, make sure you get written permission, not verbal, not anything like that. Like there needs to be written permission as well as a contract from the people who actually has the authorization to give it to you. There's been cases where, not with us, but there's been cases where some people have like got permission in quotes, but it wasn't the person who could actually authorize it, and then they still be subject to litigation. So make sure that if you guys decide to do stuff like this, you know, there's other programs that are out there too. You know, there's different bug bounty programs that have kind of like umbrella clauses, but you need to follow like their policies as well. So we do dumb things. Yeah, some things are illegal potentially, but the thing is we have permission to do it from the company. So we're protected. So yeah, don't be dumb. Give permission.
All right, so some of the toolings, internal, external. So external, we use a lot of like, you know, your standard tools when you're scanning websites. One of the ones we use pretty often is Rengen. Rengen is essentially a tool that will just go through, figure out ports, go through things, like buzz all the different subdirectories or different pages that are on there. Look for different common vulnerabilities. Like a lot of the times we see like weird TLS certs and stuff like that. They may cause the page to like pop up with that warning that says advanced to continue, stuff like that. Those are all messed up. Wapalizer, which is like basically a tool that will go and it just checks versions of stuff, really, doesn't it?
It seems like what technologies a website is
Yeah.
using.
It's been a while since I've used that. Other than that, yeah, like your burp suites, your FUP, that's also very fun. Be careful what you run that on. GoBuster, I think is a good one. Either way. Very fun tools. Do a lot of stuff. GoFish, he's been working a lot with GoFish and setting up templates to phishing emails and stuff like that. Breach Directory is probably Breach Directory and Reported Future are probably some of my favorite ones. Where you take an email, you guys can do it right now with your laptops to see if you have any passwords out in the open. You can go to Breach Directory and put in your email, and it will search through a bunch of breaches to see. It's like Have I Been Pwned, but it's just a different one that I like better. That we go through and look at to find any passwords that may be out in the open for just emails that we see on clients' websites and stuff like that. So for internals, of course, we're using Kali Linux, fairly standard. We're thinking about maybe switching over to Parrot or something like that, or setting up our own kind of like system. We looked at Nix a little bit. Responder is very fun. Impacket is very fun. NetExec is very fun. Those are all tools that I enjoy thoroughly. Responder will go into the network and kind of be part of like a man in the middle. It basically will kind of take what is going over the network, will take it and send it out depending on like what kind of protocol it is. You can do more with that. Like SMB is a big one that we use Responder for. Impacket is just a nice little toolkit that you can go through and do some more SMB things. Like SMB exec is a fun one that we use. Once we crack some passwords, we use that. Use it in password, get in there, get a shell, start digging around computers, all that fun stuff. There's a lot of different ones. There's smbserver.py, which I believe is brought up in a screenshot later in the slides. NetExec is also a fun one. I don't know if you guys have heard of CrackMap exec. This is the same thing, just updated, and actually still like there's ongoing support with NetExec. Very fun thing. A lot of the times it's still we're using it to scan SMB, figure out what's open, what's available on the network, what might have different like SMB versions that are vulnerable to some of these man-in-the-middle attacks or just out of date in general. So we look at that and the signing, which is just a way to tell if you have a connection on the computer. If signing is enabled, the computer will what it's connected to will constantly check if it's the right computer. Or if it's disabled, we can go through and pretend that we are said computer and get the connection. Nmap. Hopefully you guys have all heard of it. Network scanning tool, figure out what parts are open, what services are running, the versions of those services. Yeah, there's a lot more, but these are the main ones that we use day-to-day assessments and stuff.
So, so this is for our physical assessments. We use a bunch of different things. So for physical assessments, we use things like our flipper zeros. A lot of times we don't use like the RF stuff very much. We have cloned a couple badges with it, but really it's more of a toy than it is anything else. The thing that we mostly use on this guy is the bad USB or the bad keyboard function. So like Aaron mentioned with the SAM dumping stuff, we can take a USB-C into a USB-A, and if there's any unlocked computer, we can just plug it in, hit a little button on this guy, and then that will basically just run PowerShell to dump everything on that computer. We also have underdoor tools, so this is for like physical bypass stuff. I actually have it in my bag. I have a demo that we do later too. But this guy, basically, an underdoor tool basically abuses the truss on the inside of the building. So different types of handles. I don't have the book with me, or I don't have it out right now. But basically, you can take this guy, stick it under a door, and then activate the latch on the other side, because most of the time, if it's on the inside of the building, that's going to be unlocked. Then we have also traveling hook. There is another demo that we have later on for this, but this guy is this basically abuses the lack of what's called a dead latch in a door. If it's locked or something, if you can still manipulate that latch that actually holds it into the frame of the wall, you can potentially push that in and do that, and then pop the door right open. We also have shims for that. Basically the same thing, just a lot thinner, so you can get into a lot of easier areas. We've got lock picks, so this is my everyday carry. This is like I just slip it in my wallet, and it's just a bunch of little templated like there's a file shim, there's a saw in here, a bunch of different tension wrenches and lock picks. So like a lot of times, like my wallet is relatively low profile. So like we've had times where like there would be a guard there and we have to empty our pockets and they run it through a metal detector and they don't see any of it because it's all underneath our cards anyway. So there's some fun things that you can do with that. We also bring our laptops and cables and adapters and stuff like that. So if we can get like a network drop or something, we can totally abuse that. I also like to bring this little guy, so it's called a Ponagachi. This is an open source project. Basically what it will do is it's almost like a Tamagotchi, so it's like a little virtual pet, but instead of like I don't even know what you do with Tamagotchis, but instead of you like maintaining it somehow, this guy will actually look around for Wi-Fi networks and will actually just start like hitting all of them, and if it can get passwords, or if it can get what's called the four-way handshake, which is the authentication process for wireless networks, he'll be very happy, and you can crack the passwords later. So we like to do that for physical assessments too. So I usually just turn that on and leave it in my bag, and if we're walking around the building, I'll see if we can force a handshake on the network that we're supposed to be in.
One of the other things that we always bring too is I have a traveling router. So this little guy is like $130 or something, but USB-C power, so I can always start power from my laptop. It has 3 ports in the back, 2 LAN and a WAN. The other WAN can be turned into a LAN as well. We can use it for remote access, see it back to what we need to do, or to test things on the fly. Can also be potentially used as a drop.
It's come in as a godsend when we're troubleshooting stuff. Well, we use it way more than we thought we would. So
Great investment.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through the external, internal, and physical assessments that we have done over the past year or so. And we're basically just going to cover like our top 3 to 5 favorite findings that we've ever found. This is a lot of fun. I really like the idea of this because a lot of the stuff like that we do, we never talk about because we're not really allowed to. So yeah, we're under an NDA, which is only a suggestion if you're brave enough, but yeah, so we're gonna go through all of this, and hopefully it's entertaining. So this is starting on the external side. So there was one client that we had where they were basically vulnerable to what's called server-side request forgery. So if you guys were in CTF Club a couple weeks ago, we actually, I think, went over this in like the web exploitation part. But basically what you can do with server-side request forgery is if there's some kind of parameter or something that the web server is actually supposed to process, if the attacker can control that, then you can potentially make that web server perform various completely arbitrary web requests or any kind of like request. So in this case, this is the exact URL, except we had to get rid of the client data because NDA. But this is just blah. here's the CDN stuff, and then the way. So this is how they were actually embedding images onto the website. So there was some site that like just I don't even remember what I think it was like on the history part of their website, but it pulled something from like Google Storage, which is what their stuff was signed in on. But it turns out that if you change that URL to whatever you wanted, you can force the server to perform whatever you want. So this we went to ident.me, which is basically it's like a checker to see like what your public IP address is. This is the public IP address of the web server. We also made it visit like Twitter, YouTube, GitHub, and it would all just completely embed on the website, which was really funny. We tried to enumerate like the internal network of it. We didn't get like a lot of results because I think this was hosted on like AWS or something like that, and there was some firewalling stuff that they had, but we were potentially able to do that if we really played around with it enough. But this was a pretty fun one. This was really weird. I actually found this one like in the pre-assessment meetings while we were talking with the client on like what the scope and all of that was. Like as soon as the thing was over, I was like, "Hey guys, check this out," and then I made the thing go to Twitter, so it was fun.
We did have a contract signed
Yeah, it was
before.
signed. It was so yeah. Yeah, it wasn't. If I did it just a little earlier, it probably would have been legal.
Okay, so this one was pretty interesting. We did find this on a number of different clients, but there was a vulnerable WordPress plugin, specifically their calendar plugin, that at the bottom at the end where you have the calendar equals parameter, you can perform a GET request against it to get the calendar information, but it's vulnerable to local file inclusion. So you can change that and then essentially request whatever file that you're able to access based off the permissions that the web service is running as from the backend system. So in this case, we had very high level permissions. We were able to pull, Etsy Shadow, we were able to pull directly off of it. So with that, the web server was running as root, so we could have full access with the local file inclusion. When this would be performed, it'd be downloaded as a ICS file, but inside of that was not the calendar information; it was whatever you were requesting. So yeah, we found this, yeah, on those those 10 clients, like all within kind of the same time frame, like probably over about 3 months or so. It was very interesting. If you guys are looking at, testing different software, especially with web, there's a plethora of it out there. But WordPress, you can always find some good stuff.
And I was gonna say this is this is the exact URL of the except for the no client stuff. But this is exactly what that looked like when that attack was actually valid because now it's been fixed.
All right, so firewall default credentials. This is something that we find a lot in general, is default credentials. But this one was alarming because it was a firewall that was externally facing. So there was also, this one was fun because I wasn't even there when this happened. But I remember going to work the next day and just being like, "You guys found what?" So there was essentially this public-facing Sonic wall, just a Dell firewall that we could that we had the IP from that meeting we had beforehand. And basically, what we would do is whenever we find like a printer or a router or a firewall or something like that, we'll just Google what is the default credentials for this system, and then we'll go try the credentials because it doesn't hurt to try it at least once. And so basically what we did is we had access to the firewall. We were able to set up a VPN to pivot into the internal network, which allowed us to see the kind of the city's water infrastructure and their SCADA systems, which is
No.
tough because SCADA is very, very fragile. And so, yeah, as it says right there, it is very bad because SCADA is very fragile. Most of the time, we don't like to touch SCADA because if something bad happens with SCADA, something really bad happens.
First, does everybody know what SCADA is? Okay, so it's for industrial control systems, right? So these are like embedded controllers or like custom built for controlling like ICS systems or anything to do with like pretty much infrastructure manufacturing. So when you come across stuff like this, or if you guys do, if you ever see a SCADA system that you have access to, you need to notify like as soon as humanly possible. Because like if those are knocked down, like you can cause a lot of damage for a lot of people. Like even if, like Landon was saying, like with us even testing them, if you throw like Nmap or something like that at it, like yes, Nmap is like a great tool, industry known, right? But like just that, or even like FUF, you could completely knock down that whole controller and cause like thousands, if not potentially millions of dollars in damage, depending on what it's controlling.
Yeah, that, and like of course in this case it was the system for water, for like water treatment or something like that. I don't entirely remember what it was, but it had to deal with water. And when you knock down water, like a water treatment facility, it causes a lot of issues for a lot of people. Very important that you are very careful with SCADA.
I could
And also make sure you set passwords for
yeah.
very
Yeah.
important.
Like with this, I didn't even leave work before I changed it. I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to sleep. I gotta get it changed. So not saying that you should ever do that, but we had our client's permission. So if you guys ever do see something like this, definitely
Notify
Notify.
immediately.
mhm.
Some other memorable findings from the external. There was one where we were able to pull down the entire backup. This has actually happened like more than once, where we were able to pull down the entire back end of the server from the outside. So that's not good because a lot of times you can find passwords and different things like that. So yeah, stuff like that. Also, like another thing that we tend to do with every assessment is we do data breach enumeration. So kind of like what Landon mentioned earlier with the breach directory and the reported future stuff, we find a lot of passwords out of data breaches. It's pretty fun and kind of rewarding to do that. And another thing is like unrestricted API keys. This is just another traditional thing with the web. The one that we find almost all the time is regarding like Google Maps. So if you have an API key, usually that lets you authenticate into some external service. And if you have what's called an unrestricted API key, basically anyone can take that token or that key and then basically play it off to whatever the intended endpoint is. And if it's an unrestricted key, that service is going to just be like, okay, no, yeah, you're perfectly fine. So essentially what you can do with an unrestricted API key, specifically with Google Maps, is you can basically make Google Maps requests on behalf of some other user. So it's not your account that you're doing this under. Just because you have their key, now you're making like different kinds of requests under their account. So they actually, the damages or the potential damage with unrestricted API keys comes with if that service is paid for. So with Google Maps, they specifically charge, they have two different ways of charging actually. So they have a quota version and then they just have like a pay as you go. So let's say, for example, like they had a quota of like 1,000 requests per month. If you found an unrestricted API key and you flooded like 1,000 requests in like 30 seconds, then basically they're going to completely deny any request after that quota. And then you can potentially just straight out denial of service every Google Maps integration that whoever is hosting this key has. Or if you do pay as you go, you can just charge them infinite. So it's kind of a lose-lose either way. But that's a really common one that we find. That's a really fun one to explain because it's kind of weird. But yeah. So this is going on to our internals, and these are really fun.
These are fun.
We love the internals.
Okay, so we've had this on a number of assessments. So I will never own a printer in my life. I probably will never have like, I have an Amazon Alexa, it's off in a box. I'll never do like IoT really. But we found, well, Hunter found the exploit, I patched it, and then we were able to go from having no access in this network to 100% domain control. So pretty interesting. Different Kyocera printers, they have the ability to write to folder functionality. So essentially inside of printers, there's an address book, right? So this address book, if the users in there have the scan to network share option, the information for the account for its SMB connection is going to be stored in that printer. Well, different ones have the ability to do an unauthenticated remote call against the address book. So then you can then dump all of the stored address book information, including plain text usernames and passwords. It's a huge problem. Honestly, scan the network share is not a good idea. So yeah, later on, is this the big one? I thought we got.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, with this, on one assessment, we got like 180 socials that right out of the network. And then also later on in that same assessment, we got 1,500 socials. So yeah, so protect your data. Don't use printers.
Yeah, and the main problem with this one is like instead of managing the permissions of the users inside of the domain correctly, just to kind of make things quick and easy, prevent troubleshooting and all that stuff, the printer actually, when it did its right to folder functionality, it was doing that as a service account that was a domain administrator. So when we dumped that account out of the printer, then we had full control because they were using an overprivileged service account to just do basic functionality that a printer should do.
So essentially with this is like, I don't want to say like, oh, this is like a lazy admin problem, but it kind of is a lazy admin problem, right? Like we're taught in school to focus on like the principle of least privilege. Like you should only have the minimum requirements that are absolutely necessary for you to perform your job. In this case, using a domain administrator account for a printer is definitely not even close to like least privilege. So yeah, just make sure like when you guys are setting up stuff, even if it's for yourself, like try and follow that principle because it can come back and bite you.
And then the screenshots here. So this is what the actual dump looked like when the exploit was actually done. So it would dump it as XML data, and it was just completely unformatted. So it was just this big blob. Obviously, we blurred it out because, yeah. And then in here is one of those things. So if you guys are in the CTF or Ethical Hacking Club, I think I did mention that seeing pwned is one of the most satisfying things in the world, especially if it's on an entire network. So this is what that looks like without obviously the domain information and host names. But after we got that service account, it was completely game over for them. So that was a really fun one. Oh yeah, so here's another great one with printers. So and just any kind of other related thing. So it's called the passback attack. These are really, really fun and they're extremely common as well. So basically again, like if you have access to some printer address book or some other related IoT device or that has some kind of functionality that reaches out to the network. A lot of times it's mostly common with printers, but it's not exclusive to them. You can so basically if you can access the printer address book, which is this guy right here, and you can see, so obviously the name and stuff is blurred, but you can see here that where is it? No, so here, so this is the path that it uses. So when you do basically the scan to folder, this is the directory somewhere in the domain or on some system that is actually writing to. This is the username that is active in the domain that is actually performing that functionality. And then if you have access or if you have control over the address book, you can change this IP address, which is supposed to be the intended host, but you can change it to your list, like to your attacker's box. So in this case, that's exactly what we did. We kept everything else the same because the printer would just request that information and our box would just act like it has it. But basically here, so this is actually our IP address. So ours was, yeah, 192.168, whatever. And then you can force the printer to try to make that connection. So then when you have that listener, this is actually what you see on the other side. So this here you can see again the scans user, and then it send a hash version of the password in the domain. And so that's a really, really quick and easy way to get initial access inside of a network. So either you can crack that password. There are other settings depending on the protocol where you can just completely strip the security settings and it will just send the password in plain text. You can do that with email. We've done that a few times. But for SMB, it's always going to be what's called an NTLM hash, which is just a different way that they process the hashing for password protection. But that's a very, very common, super, super fun. I really love going for these because, yeah, they're very consistent. Like they work almost all the time.
This one was fun. Uh, so obviously that's not the person for, of course, legal reasons, MBA, all that fun stuff. So there was an assessment that we were doing that we had some foothold in the network. Of course, I mean, this is just a list of exactly kind of how it went. Did our scanning, found that they were vulnerable to LLM and R, kind of that man in the middle stuff that I was kind of talking about earlier. We got the sessions, we started enumerating stuff. We found this like one file share that had basically every single user had their own directory in this file server, and then there was another like directory in there that basically was just like all or something like that. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what it was called. But essentially, we got into that file share, and then we realized that it was just the same data duplicated. But as soon as you went into that folder, you then had access to all the files. So there was like a weird permission error as soon as you got into that directory. All of a sudden, you could see everything that was on that file share. So then I went back and took a step back and figured out like, because we had, I don't know, probably a good like 70 some, maybe even more. I don't remember how many accounts. There was a lot of accounts that we had to go dig through to find passwords, you know, stuff like that. And then, so essentially I took a step back, went to the client's like directory website and started looking through their like SAP, and I found some person that was their like head network administrator. So I was like, okay, sure. I'll start digging through their stuff because maybe there's something there. Go in there and I find a Excel spreadsheet with a boatload of credentials, and among those credentials was the credentials to the domain administrator account. So of course I take those credentials, immediately throw it into CrackMap exec at the time, and I see that like one screen where there was that like pwned everywhere. I hit enter on the subnet and I just screen lights up, full access from somebody having an Excel spreadsheet of passwords, because they just, people do that. So it was fun. Yeah, no, that was a fun challenge. There's a lot of different aspects with that one. Lesson learned. Also, keep a password manager and make the passwords good. Password reuse is also an issue. But yeah, that one was fun.
And we really like, I was going to say, so we really like this one because of the severity of the client that we were actually working on. You can kind of fill in the blanks, like very important government stuff. And that was resume generating almost. Like it was bad. It was really, really bad because of who this actually happened to.
Yeah, he wasn't back.
He may or may not have gotten his position a little bit rearranged after the assessment.
But that's like something for everybody to like keep into consideration too, right? Like just because like you're good at your job or something like that. Like this individual may have been there at least over 15 years, right? So like he knew everything ins and outs. But if you're going to cause a security breach that big, then you're not worth it. Doesn't matter if you're good.
And being in the level that they were
is even a bigger problem.
So this one is one of my favorite findings internally because so a little thing that I really like to do, and this is kind of like the same with the printer thing, I like finding really stupid ways, like getting in, like non-traditional for the most part, or just really convoluted ways of getting access because I think it's kind of funny. So in this case, this was a really interesting path. So this was over the summer, so Landon wasn't here at the time, but Aaron and I ended up doing, we did an on-site for this client, and we got into their server room, and Aaron was able to retrieve like one of the, their backup solution was so scuffed, it was actually insane. So what they had is they had like probably like 8 to 10 external hard drives, and then they would back up one of their servers and then just rotate that like every day or something like that. So we ended up looking in there and we see this pile of hard drives. Like, okay. So he took one and then he copied the information, and then it was in what's called a Veeam backup, which is just a different way of formatting. It was like the software they actually used to do the backup solution. And we took it to the forensics guys who were just next door to us in the lab, and they were able to retrieve like the actual raw registry of that computer. And then after that, we were able to kind of do something similar to dumping SAM now that we have that information. So now we have passwords. So when we actually got to the internal assessment for this one, we had local administrator over only one machine, and that was the machine that was being backed up. So with that, if you have local administrator over a computer, you usually have a permission called SE impersonate. So SE impersonate allows you basically to impersonate some other user that is already active on the computer. So in our case, when this is this first screenshot up here, so this is right after it. You can do what's called with NetExec. They have a module called enumerate like logged on users. So in this case, this was all of the users that were logged in, and I couldn't show the domain, but these were all domain attached. But they had the domain, and then they had the administrator. So the literal domain admin had an active session on this computer that we had local admin to. So then now we can send things like PowerShell on behalf of that domain admin. So down here is actually the really, really big PowerShell script that I ended up running as that user. So you can kind of see it, probably not really, honestly, but it says for here. So we local scheduled task as, and then this was the guy's username, PowerShell.exe, and then you invoke this command. And basically what all of this did was in the domain, it added a new user called PBF with the password PBF123, took that user, added it to the domain administrators group. So then after this was done, we could just take our user and we had full control. And it was really fun. I was troubleshooting it for like a morning, and this was really, really fun. So that was, that's probably one of my favorite, just like dumb ways of getting in, because the path was extremely weird. And a lot of times like internal findings are usually exclusive to the internal, but we got full control because we found a backup in the building. So that was like really hard to explain to the client like at the end, but this was a really fun one.
Yeah, so other things we commonly find, as I've probably said like 14 times, LLMNR, big problem, Minim6, which is just another man-in-the-middle attack, or man-in-the-middle tool that abuses IPv6. IPv6 is like standard configuration. Kerberos roasting is cool. It's another like Windows Active Directory authentication mechanism that we can also abuse. Password cracking, very fun. I love watching our Hashcat sessions just go and make the usernames and passwords pop up as they go. I love just sitting there and watching it. The most important is the recipes that we find on clients' computers. So of course we get permission to actually grab these, but we have probably hundreds of recipes from people's computers. That one over there is this top secret something master edition cookbook. It's like 470 pages of cookbook, and it's great. This one right here, that one was also kind of, I didn't find that one personally, but yeah, we had to, he took a screenshot of that popping up on his computer because it was going to be deleted. So that was fun.
I think I was cleaning out some files or something, and LibreOffice, apparently, I don't even remember opening that file, but I thought it was really funny because I opened it one time and it was trying to recover this document, and it was just Jello shots, so I thought that was pretty good.
Found a black market underground share email chain for crockpot recipes. There's like 400 people on this email chain.
It was wild.
Yeah. Recipes are always fun because then we get to take what we do for work and go make something. It's great.
Did you want to talk about the password cracking? Unless it pops in a minute.
Oh yeah. So I know, as Landon was saying earlier, password managers, make sure you have strong passwords. Honestly, it doesn't surprise me anymore, but it did surprise me when I started just how weak most people's passwords are. I think, on one of the assessments, we cracked like almost 2,000 passwords in under 5 minutes. There's like password reuse, like weak passwords. The biggest thing though is like, length and semi-complexity is going to be having like an 8-character with super complex. Like here at the school, like you have to have a 24+ character password, right? Like if somebody was to sit there and try and crack it with Hashcat or something like that, the likelihood that they're going to be able to use some form of dictionary is going to be very slim, unless they have different rules they can take and modify it to make it longer. But you're still looking at a substantial amount of time. So like even on personal stuff, like it might be annoying to have to type it in, but it will help in the long run. I know with our assessments, our internal stuff is only a week, right? So like we have to move quick. Sometimes depending on the size of the assessments, sometimes we'll get a little bit longer. But you know, if we have, in some cases, you know, 3 to plus thousand hashes to crack, certain types like NTLM is going to be way quicker than NTLM v2 or TCC2 creds. So if we can, you know, pop domain admin, then, you know, we can just quickly crack everything. But moral of the story, long passwords, password managers always have 2FA.
You don't want somebody like us three making fun of your passwords because your passwords are bad.
We've seen some good ones.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
really good.
Sometimes it's just fun to scroll through them.
Mhm. Some guy's password is "I hate my job."
Yeah.
And I thought that was really neat.
Donuts.
Yeah, the donuts. There was a police officer whose password was donut. But, so this is also going to go. So this is the last section. So this is our favorite physical assessment findings. So this one,
Yeah, this one was very fun because I was kind of a bystander in the entire situation. I was there with Hunter in the moment, and it's not like I can say something in front of somebody. So we went to this facility, and we walked into the door, or kind of we were walking around a little bit, kind of checking stuff out, and then the guy that was working there kind of came out and was like, "You guys need something?" We're like, "Yeah, we're here from DSU. They're just gonna look at some things if that's fine with you." And he's like, "Okay, cool." So we walk inside, we go inside, we start like talking with him a little bit more, and he's just like, "Yeah, like, where did you say you guys were from again?" And Hunter is just like, "Yeah, we're from so and so ISP." And so I'm thinking in my head, sitting there like, "Okay, that's interesting. It could work, but it's interesting." And so kind of sitting there chit chatting with the guy, kind of plugging into the firewall as we're talking with him, trying to figure out some things, testing connections to stuff. And Aaron then walks in, and he then asks Aaron where we work. And Aaron says, because he didn't have the context of the two of us completely fumbling the bag, Aaron says, "We work for the city." And so this guy is sitting there looking at the three of us inside of this building, this pretty small like office inside of this building, as we're plugged into the firewall, and we are from DSU, some ISP, and the city at the same time. And so this dude just kind of like sitting there, just like visibly confused, like, what's kind of going? Let us in. Everything was fine. People are generally too nice. Also, if you're working somewhere and somebody just does something like that, tell them to go kick rocks or something like that. Also, with the nice thing about this guy, most people don't question it afterwards. They're like, "That was weird," like whatever. This guy then called the point of contact saying, "Were these guys supposed to be here?" And that is very important when you're doing stuff like this. So that in case something does happen, they can then go back and figure stuff out and actually figure out like the response to what just happened, figure out what damage might have been caused. Very important.
yeah. So,
Oh yeah. So like after we had that conversation, we started having more casual conversations, and we kind of calmed down a little bit. We got done with the firewall, and he's just like, we were about ready to leave, and he's like, "You guys need to go check over there. That might be where the internet gets dropped in at." And so we're sitting there like, "Sure, yeah, we'll go over there." So he goes and grabs this like ring of keys, and he just starts unlocking doors and letting us in. And he's just like, "You guys need in here?" And we're like, "Sure." And he's like, this closet. I'm like, "Yeah, that works." And so we just go in there and he just starts opening stuff up, and that's what you see here. Blurred faces and stuff like that. And then we see this like big control panel, and of course, we know nothing about it. So we're just like, "Ah, very cool." As I'm kind of sitting there, kind of hiding, just taking a picture of what we're doing. And so yeah, that one was fun because people are generally trusting as soon as you start having casual conversation with them.
Ended up being a SCADA network that he took us to.
Yeah, always verify who you're talking to, and if you're not sure, make sure you ask who their bot is so that you can call them and figure out if people are supposed to be where they are. It's pretty easy once you realize that, I don't know, people are nice, and as long as you sound confident, you're generally pretty okay.
Like this.
Yeah, Heidi is carrying the ladder as well. So.
So,
Oh my God.
so this one was kind of wild. So usually when we do like physical assessments, the buildings that we hit aren't like tremendously large. So usually what we'll do is like Aaron will split up and then me and Lynn will usually stick together. This time we actually like completely split up. So actually, the way that this building was laid out, so a lot of like the county stuff will have like the main area, and then like the police department will be like somewhere off like in the building as well. So Aaron ended up going around, and he was gonna go to the police department side, but we hit like the I can't even think of the word right now, but we went to the other part of the building, and we get stopped by the auditor, and she's like, "Are you guys here to see the auditor?" And we're like, "Yeah, yeah, sure we are." And she's like, "Okay, yeah, I'm gonna run to the bathroom really quick. You meet me outside my office." So then we like come into the hallway, and like we're trying to find her office. And I think like as we're waiting, I see that this door that goes to a stairwell. And then I was looking at Landon, I was like, "Do we want to like split up here?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can just talk to her." So I ended up going down this stairwell, and it led to like this massive storm bunker. It was insane. Like it was huge, and it was extremely dark, and it looks like straight something out of like a horror game. There was like they had like donation stuff for like the city in there. So there was like children's clothing and like toys and like all of these things just all over the place, and it was really really sketchy. But eventually, like somewhere in the basement, I was trying a bunch of different doors, and then we ended up getting into their main server closet, which was literally just an open room with like some storage. But this was their entire like network infrastructure. This is a photo of my Mac when I was plugged into one of the switches. This one put us on the internal domain, and it also put us on the state network, which is even kind of funnier. So that was the internal finding. But this one was really funny because just like nobody knew who like where any of us were. So like I didn't know where Landon was. He didn't know where I was. We completely lost Aaron for like an hour and a half. And there were times like so we eventually all like started to converge like into this bunker, and it's like dead silent, and it is extremely scary down there. And then I'm sitting in the server room like plugged into stuff, and anytime I heard a sound, I would unplug everything, shut my Mac, throw it in my bag, and like hide in the corner for a little bit. And like it's when you're in those types of environments, everything seems extremely loud. And then so this basement didn't have like the rooms were basically sectioned off, but they didn't have like a ceiling. So you could see like over it. And I think it was Aaron, like I started hearing like footsteps, and I could see like flashlight beams like on the other side of the wall. So I'm like, who is over there? And I eventually come out and I scare the life out of Aaron.
It's like some Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah. And then I don't remember where did you meet up? I don't remember where you were.
I think okay, so basically when we went to talk to the auditor, when because we just got out of the bathroom, she's like, "Oh, you here to meet like, the auditor and stuff?" So we're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, sure." Because we're like, okay, I guess this is through with. So I guess we got caught, whatever. And so we eventually make our way there. Hunter goes in the basement. I kind of sit there for a minute. I'm like, well, if we got some time, I'm gonna like kind of wander around a little bit. I think Aaron might have went and actually talked to the auditor. But anyways, I go and disappear, head into the basement. I'm trying to find Hunter. Hunter's gone. Nowhere to be found. No trace of him. Of course, he was hiding in the server room. So whenever I was down there trying to like figure out where he is, just dead quiet. And yeah, it was fun because eventually we just yeah.
Well, and it was loud down there too because they had all their HVAC, they had their heaters, gas lines, and big wave too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
This one was also pretty fun. So essentially the way that we got into this one is we were actually tipped off a little bit as to what could work because otherwise there's a lot of people in said facility. And basically we got information from the point of contact that basically there's only like one or two people in there after a certain time, and they're like janitorial people. And so what we did is we waited and we did set assessment after in some time frame, and we basically walked up to the door, hit the doorbell or whatever it was. I don't even know. Doorbell, and then somebody comes up to the door and just like, "Didn't need anything." And then we're just like, "Yeah, we're here from AT, so and so send it to me." Like, all right, lets us into this water treatment facility, and then we just kind of wander around for a bit. That was I think our point of contact event did meet us up and we got a nice tour of this water treatment facility. Man, as you can see, big, like, I don't even know what they do. That's a picture of me, that's a picture of me taking a picture just because I thought it was cool. Yeah, that one was fun. And then this one was probably my favorite
Oh,
picture from
yeah.
there. Just some funny stuff that you see in some of these places.
In a water facility.
Yeah, this one was fun. It's just like it's yeah.
And I also included this photo. This was also from the They had this thing where like they were keeping like an exit door shut with like a massive industrial like it's probably like a fire code violation, but we thought it was really funny anyway. So we sometimes see that like we just like that photo. But that was all from the water treatment facility.
I'll mention one more thing. We see sticky notes all the time in people's passwords and stuff.
Yeah.
Don't do that. There you go.
There's been a couple of places that we've gone that have stacks of sticky notes, probably about that. So we lay it across their desk, and yeah, who knows?
Surely one of them had the password on.
At least.
So this was one that was more recent. This one took place over the summer. So Aaron and I we went to this one place, and because of the time zone difference, it was actually really convenient because it was around lunchtime when we actually showed up. And so when we went into this building, they had 2 floors. So Aaron and I just kind of split up. He went upstairs and then I went downstairs. And I was pretty much just like walking around like whatever I could get access to. And using like so basically the big one with this was we were using our flippers. So I ended up finding this desk and like it had a desktop on it that was completely unlocked. So I dumped the SAM on that guy. And then I kind of walked around some more and then I ended up finding like an office. And it was like the building was a literal maze. I don't know why it was so confusing, but there was like 4 or 5 people like in this room around the corner, and you could peek your head in and you can see them sitting like at their desks. So I was kind of just like stalling and just like walking around and just kept peeking back in there trying to see if anyone leaves. And as I was walking out one time, the guy, this is his desk here, his back would have been towards me, but he gets up and he's like on the phone, and I think he was like some like a maybe like a maintenance guy or something like that. I don't really know, but he was on the phone with someone, and he's like, okay, yeah, I'll be there in a second. So he's like following me up the stairs, like as he's on the phone, and then the door, like so the exit is like right there. So like the steps come up, it's like that split level thing. So he comes up and I come around the other side. He leaves and then I sprint back downstairs and his thing was completely unlocked. So I did that. And then I did that like another 2 or 3 times. So we ended up like dumping the SAM on like 4, or we dumped the SAM like 4 separate times on this assessment, and that got us a pretty good amount of passwords for the internal assessment, which is pretty nice. But again, like lock your desktops when you leave. Like make sure you're not leaving stuff unlocked, even if it's for like a quick second, because there have been times where people will just get up to go to the bathroom and we'll sneak in there. And actually, no, I did exactly that.
Yeah.
She like left the room. This was a different assessment, but she left the room to go to the bathroom. She was gone for a couple minutes. It was enough for me to get passwords, and then we left, and she had no idea. So stuff like that.
So, and also with the bad USB, so normally you can't just like dump the SAM or like the hives or anything. You have to have like administrative privileges. So we have a AMSI UAC bypass that will go from user to admin and then exfil everything. So like can't just like throw it on and go get them. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So just lock your laptops.
Yep.
It's not hard to bypass that stuff.
Oh, this one.
Oh yeah. So yeah, this was a little interesting. So it was all 3 of us. Yeah. We were doing fire department. Went ahead and we're starting to head towards the front. All of a sudden we see one of them walk out and basically goes to the truck and takes off. Well, there's no other vehicles in the parking lot, so we decided, hey, let's check it out. Doors were unlocked. We had access to trucks, all of their equipment, the whole building. There's keys in vehicles. We had radios, and the unlocked desktop for the fire marshal. So yeah, even though it is a secure building, this was kind of interesting too. So I kind of thought that we might have got caught like right off the bat. Because when there was 3 of us that were walking towards the front as he was coming out, and then we turned around and walked back. and then he kind of followed us and he got into his truck. So I was a little thought we were going to get caught, but no, we ended up not. So yeah, with this too, I mean, there's, you know, CB radios, there's a bunch of other potentially important things, right? Like one of the big things that we have to be concerned about is dispatch units, right? Like if we knock down like a dispatch radio or some form of like EMS, that could potentially cause, you know, loss of life or harm due to an action that we did. You know, that's not good. I mean, you know, we're kind of covered, but there's still like some limitations, right? So in this case, right, fire department could have a dispatch or the ability to get into a dispatch system. We have had access to different dispatch units to even listen to calls and stuff like that. So again, keep things locked. Don't put sticky notes down.
Yeah, another fun thing on this one is when we got into the facility, basically immediately to our right, there is a door. Sorry, I get them mixed up all the time. I'm really bad at it. There's the door to an office right locked on one side, but they had basically this corridor, go around, take another right, this like main kind of area where I'm assuming they like hang out or whatever on their off time. Go back down around on the other side of that office, there's another door that was just unlocked. So like if you have an office like that, make sure that all the entrances are locked, especially if there's important information or if you leave your computer unlocked.
Oh, we found checks on his desk.
Oh yeah, there's checks
Yeah.
too. So like it's just
In his keyboard.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you can't hardly see anything from these pictures because there's
Let's react.
NDA stuff for that, but yeah.
And
And I was gonna add to that. So this one was kind of funny too because we had multiple different buildings that we were hitting for the county, like on this day. If I remember right, the 3-story one was in the same area as this. But it was also funny because as we were driving around town, we ended up at like a stop sign, and the fire marshal was like right next to us, and we all kind of stuck in our chairs. He was like, he has no idea what we just did, but yeah. Okay, doors are cool and neat. So this is kind of going back to the thing in the very beginning. So I really like doors. Physical security. I'm a certified yapper when it comes to physical security. There are so many different ways to get around so many different things in regards to physical security. So again, like lock picking is not like the only way to get into a building or to unlock a door. If anything, actually, like in all the assessments that we've done a ton, literally countless times. We've gotten around locked doors. I have my lock picks, but I've actually never used them, so I'm kind of lying. But like seriously, like lock picking it's genuinely like the 12th thing down, like in like a checklist of things to look for in a door. So we have a couple videos actually, which I think are pretty fun. So this first one here, again, this is the traveler's hook. If you have enough space between the door and the frame to manipulate the latch, and assuming it's not what's called a dead latch, you can pop that door. So this first video, okay, actually before I start it, no, I'll just play it really quick. So this was a locked door that you had to card into for it to open. So basically what happened here is in this little like brush thing that they have in between the door, that's like a 1/4 inch that you can literally shove like a book into there. And this latch that was sitting around here was not a dead latch, and you could just push it like straight back. So if you pulled on the door and then pushed it straight back, that's how you could get in. The card reader was off to our left, like on this assessment, but this is one of the only times, there's one other video, but like we never get these things recorded when we do it, because a lot of times like we do it and then you have that adrenaline rush and you don't think about anything else but to like go somewhere else in the building. In this case, we were actually escorted around because this place was gigantic. So when he opened up his thing, I was like, wait, let's go back out here for a minute. So then me and Landon come out, and then we ended up recording this. So again, the traveler's hook, I didn't hook anything. You can use the flat part to push it in. So that's exactly what happened in this guy. And then the point of contact was just waiting on the other side. So that was that one.
Also, for some of the assessments. We've been able to kind of time it when we're also doing the internal, and we've been able to get access to their actual card system. So we could just unlock the carded doors.
And so this is a different building for the exact same client. So this is again, same client as we were getting escorted around. I think we had like 5 or 6 different buildings that we were doing this day. Again, here's the card reader. You can see it's red, which means it's locked. So you kind of tug on it, you try to pull it, you can't get in. But again, the hook, if you can manipulate that latch, you can still force it in and pop the door open. And I think on this assessment, I seriously did it like probably a solid 15 times. Like we only got 2 of them recorded, but it was like every door that they had in almost all of their buildings, I would just pop it for no reason. Even if like the guy was about to card in, I'm like, wait a minute. And then it was fun. So then this is a video that we recorded last night. So the underdoor tool. So again, this is that's that big thing where actually, so it works on these types of handles. So if you can see like the latch type handle, that's very common nowadays mostly for like accessibility reasons. So like if somebody doesn't have all of their fingers or something, or if someone's hands are full, they can push the door or they can push the handle down with like their elbow or something instead of having to use like those circular knobs. So again, like if this door was unlocked on the outside, for example, if you can get something in and around the other side, you can potentially manipulate either the latch, or in this case with the underdoor tool, you're manipulating the handle to force the door to open, because it's almost always unlocked on the inside because that's where the trust is. You can also do it on the top. So if they have protections on the bottom that like prevent someone from shoving something into the door, a lot of times, I'll say probably a solid 80-90% of the time, those handles will work if you pull out. Like the ones on campus don't, which is kind of strange. But yeah, but if you can get something over the door instead of under the door, you can pull the exact same attack off. This is my dorm, by the way. This is not someone else's dorm. So yeah, so this is what this looks like. So you basically line it up, you pull it on the other side. I had my friend record on the other side, so this is actually what it looks like on his perspective. So you have it. So there's a wire that gets attached to this. So basically, you try to get the wire underneath on the door side, and then you can just pull that wire down, and then that will bow in the massive, like the main frame part of the tool, and then that's how you can pop these things from the other side. And like if you live on campus, you know these doors are kind of insane to try to get around. But yeah, like it's just a fun little demo. Like that's what that looks like. And we do it on assessments like fairly often as well. Legally, of course. Yeah.
All right, so how to get into this field. So again, my background is all like software engineering. I started when I was very, very young. So just because you start in one sector doesn't mean that you won't end up in a completely different area doing something else. So learn as much as you can. Try and find what you like and just go deep. As far as the offensive side, there's a lot of amazing things out there. So I've been working with some of the guys for the Small Business Association, or SBA. It's another group in the Mad Labs. The Heartland Project, I do run that during the summer, doing basically this exact same thing. There's also Black Hills InfoSec, Reg Siege, SBS Cybersecurity. There's a plethora of other organizations out there as well. The biggest thing, as far as like if I'm looking at trying to get an intern, or if I'm looking to see like who knows what, the most important thing that you can have like is outside of school projects. Like, cool, you got A's, you have a 4.0. Okay, like that doesn't mean anything. Like, do you have a project that can actually set you aside from everybody else? Like, what were you doing in your off time to make yourself better, and then actually like apply things? I mean, we all have home labs, like well, almost. It can become an addiction. I mean, like once like, home labs are for sure, but you know, dive into it, figure out what you want to do, and you know, especially with projects, there's not like a bad project. If you can't think of one, start small, ask ChatGPT for a couple of ideas, and go from there. But yeah, as far as like practicing hacking, again, make sure that if you are doing it on a live client, make sure you have that authorization agreement in place before you ever touch it. But there are like competitions, the CPTC. There's also, multiple different other things like Sand Security has, their Christmas hackathons. There's Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, Game of Active Directory, another great reason to have a home lab. There's OWASP Juice Shop, DVWA, and a ton more. Like even on GitHub, you can spool up like Vulnhub boxes directly in Docker containers. One of the huge things that I would definitely recommend for any of you guys who are looking at going into the offensive security side is see kind of what area you're the best at. Like I am not the best social engineer. I can talk and stuff, but like I'm not great when it comes to some of those confrontations. These two, on the other hand, they're great. I prefer, doing some of the behind the scenes. I like infrastructure a lot. But also, if you definitely want to go offensive, you need to learn Active Directory. The likelihood that any organization that, like most organizations, especially like private sector, if they don't have an AD, then I don't know, they're doing something wrong. But you need to learn how Active Directory works, how ticketing works. There's a bunch of changes that have happened with Windows 11, with a bunch of the Kerberos and AD stuff. I know it doesn't really get talked about a whole lot in classes as far as the offensive side, but check out Game of Active Directory. You can spool it up directly on your systems. There's cloud as well, like AWS that you guys could always do. Probably even in, what is it now? Pickle?
The pickle.
The pickle.
Let's go.
So even in that, but yeah, check out Handshake, LinkedIn, try to attend different conferences, learn as much as possible. Like while you guys are in college, it's not just about, meeting people and, oh, I want to go to class and then I want to go home or back to my dorm and just go game and screw around. Like this is like the most important time for you guys to like actually do something. Have your own group of friends and, get together and build cool stuff. So.
Yeah, and another benefit is a lot of this stuff is free.
Yeah.
Really, it costs almost nothing to really start learning how to hack, and doing a lot of offensive security stuff. Again, like shameless plug, DSU CTF Club, stuff like that.
Oh, one other thing, just so you guys know, like barrier to entry, the barrier to entry for this, like even for our stuff, right? Like my lab has not paid for what we did now, but has not paid for any actual like software or service. So like you might see tools like I don't know, Nessus, Metasploit Pro, which honestly don't use Metasploit. Get away from it. It's garbage. Learn how to actually do it. And yeah, everything in this offensive side can be free. I apologize.
Yeah, so this is just to stress out, ethics is very, very important. As you saw earlier, we do very dumb and very illegal thing, but we have the appropriate authorization to do this stuff. Failure to having said authorization will get you in a lot of trouble legally to follow the law. What we do is fun, but the report is the most important part of our job, because if we can't tell them anything that we found, then it's useless to them and useless for to use our time on. So, yeah, follow the law. Questions?
Yeah.
You had any incidents close to what happened in Iowa a couple years ago?
We almost got sued.
Yeah, that was a very stressful.
Yeah, that was a very interesting one. Basically, the long story short with that one is we did the onsite, and I was like trying to plug into someone's computer to dump the SAM on something, and this lady like walked around, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, you got me. Oh, I'm supposed like whatever." And then like it was not like the dark.
Hunter didn't hear like trying to connect to a computer.
Yeah, and
And
basically,
I'm sitting in a, like you're saying, I'm sitting in an office just like there's a door here, and I'm like, uh-oh.
And that was a really interesting one because that incident with that one lady kind of revealed some like internal like potential like dilemmas and stuff. Like when she reported the incident, she didn't follow chain of command. She just went straight to law enforcement. And
Oh
you know
yeah,
what I
I
mean?
got a call from him too.
He was
Yeah.
like talking with lawyers and like police officers and all of this stuff. And it's like we had permission, we had authorization, like we were technically not breaking the law, but it was just like it was immediately it got really messy because she didn't ask the point of contact, which was the auditor who was upstairs. Like she just went straight to the cops, and it was like,
So basically what ended up happening with that was there. So we didn't know this going in, and how could we, right? The individual who caused, the call to the police and everything, was kind of a disgruntled employee, and there was a lot of dynamic issues with them and some other employees at that facility. So they were trying to use this event to try and cause more problems at the office. At the end of the day, after what felt like a very like month-long week, nothing ended up happening, at least with us. Like again, we had the authorization, right? If we didn't, there would have been some stuff happening. Yeah, I did get a call from the authorities on our way out, and yeah, they were definitely they were looking for us at that point in time.
yeah, she was trying to
yeah,
file a lawsuit,
Yeah.
which was very interesting.
yeah. I mean, as you see, we're not in jail. None of us got a record on that, so we're good. Yeah, nothing happened. Anything else?
Would it have been really easy for that water treatment plant just to case it and notice that there's only 2 cars in the parking lot?
Yeah, I think that the main thing was like all of the staff was gone at the time. So really it was just like the cleaning crew. So that's usually like a relatively small team anyway, I think. There were a couple times where like the amount of cars did like bring attention. I remember there was one time we went to another water treatment facility and like I don't even know who it was, but we like pulled into this car. We were in our car. We pulled in, and just the presence of some car that wasn't like related to the company, like the guy saw us from an extremely far away distance, and they drove up almost instantly. He's like, "Hey guys, what are you doing here?"
Like we were barely even out of the car.
Yeah, does that kind of answer your question, or?
But yeah, like technically, yeah, if you cased it, probably.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, like if you case the joint, like like it's fun because we get to act like criminals, right? So,
Yeah.
but legally, but yeah, if you were to like sit there and like watch and everything, yes, you could probably figure out like when people were there. I mean,
That-
it's huge for this. But
That and like we were saying, that one we just happened to be told that we were, because these assessments, we plan them out because you're located here and clients can be anywhere within South Dakota. We have to plan when we're going. We don't have the time to sit there and sit outside of a building and figure out what's going on. We have 3 weeks to do our assessments. And so that one, we were just lucky enough that the point of contact had told us that odds are, if you're gonna do something, this is probably the time that you should do it. Just so that they can, that and they wanted some more information for the report, because there was issues with stuff with security during at times anyway.
Yeah, you could just like wait in the evening and just see did they call stuff leaving.
oh yeah, I mean that's very like
Very
they're
possible. Real criminals do stuff like that.
oh there's also like other firms that they do much more intensive clients, and some of them will be like 6-month long, year long, like even physical assessments against these.
Yeah, you want to hear
organization.
some like cool stories? There's a podcast called Darknet Diaries. It's an episode called Deviant. So you can hear some really fun stories about physical pen testing. That guy
Full covert.
digging under fences is really good. Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, hopefully that was clear. It was hopefully it was at least fun. and interesting in some way. But yeah.